Oh, my mic is off. That's really embarrassing. Well, hello everybody. Usually things start off a bit smoother than this. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and today we're going to be playing a 5 versus 2 scenario on Third Age Reforged. This scenario was sent to me by Alasan and reenacted by the kind of usual suspects from the podcast crew on the official Third Age Reforged Discord. This one, I'm told, is extremely close. And it's also very long as well, clocking in at about 60 frames. So we're going to have time to go through army compositions and so forth, but I'm going to slow it down here, as I do want to reiterate that I want to experiment a little bit more with this live replay format moving forward. It's way simpler on me in terms of the production of videos. And it's way more fun, because I get to interact with people in addition to that. So this is something that I want to do moving forward, and then like my more like set piece things like the historical series, things like that, those will be things that are uploaded because they require a little bit of editing. But your average battle replay requires very little editing. So if you guys are happy with live streams like this moving forward, then please do let me know, and I will try and take your preferences into consideration. Sometimes it just will fit better, so a live stream replay will probably still happen from time to time. But on days when I can't sit down and stream, then if I'm going on vacation or something, then I'll upload and do things normally. But with my new upcoming schedule, I want to keep up with the channel, but I think the best way for me to do that is to streamline the process. And the most streamlined thing that I could think of was just doing replays directly, cutting out YouTube and my editing software as like the middleman, essentially. And that saves me about, probably about 8 hours worth of waiting, essentially. So it means I can do replays more often, I can do them more spontaneously. It just makes it easier to kind of keep up with the activity on the channel. So yeah, hopefully that works for everybody as a system. But yeah, let me know. We can always try it out, and we'll kind of see how that turns out. Yeah, this is Amansul with some extra Gondorian buildings and some other doodads and so forth. Hello, Val. Thanks for joining us on the stream today. New gamers, haven't seen you around before. Welcome. Let's take a look at some of the army comps here. So, we're going to look at both the Death Eater and Alisan's army in short order. I do need to kind of turn down my sound here a little bit, though. There we go. I'll make it a bit more reasonable. So, the Harlenon Infantry, really strong light infantry, lower on their armor values, of course, but they have a solid shield that prevents them from just being completely massacred at long range, and their melee defense is something to be considered. So, we've got 3 companies of them at least here. There may be more interspersed throughout the armies. We'll sort of pick things out as we go through. Forlandon Pikemen, the seminal pike unit for the Elves of Mythland. The Forlandon pikemen are numerous, and they are skilled, and like the other Forlandon and Harlandon units, they are lacking in armor. So, very vulnerable to missile fire. You can always mix them in with some very scary units, however. Like the Noldoran Guard, for example, who will block that incoming missile fire. Noldoran Guard are heavy infantry, and I believe they're also still an Inspire unit, so they are useful for helping to keep your line stable, which is something you want to try and achieve basically every time as the Elves. Chaos usually favors more numerous factions, whereas discipline and ordered battle lines will always favor the Elves. Got some Noldoran Blade Masters here as well. Heavy infantry, but they're also a 2 HP bodyguard in addition. Mython Sword Masters, sort of the Noldoran Blade Masters, but a step down. Less armor, they're probably faster as well, I believe, and obviously much more numerous, but they do not have that second hit point. Got some Harlandon Guard over here from Death Eater. They are a hybrid spear and archer unit. So they have a lot of applications in terms of screening out cavalry, but they're also just good in a skirmish fight with that shield value. They're extra tanky. Wardens of Elostirian here. These are the ranger unit for Lindon. And rangers in Reforged currently are all body piercing, so they can do a ton of damage to blobbed up troops. But I think that's something that the team is looking at changing in the future. It's my understanding that ranger projectiles will be kind of modified a little bit, and they're going to try and focus on more diversity there rather than having all rangers do the same thing. We've got some Mython Swordmasters here as well. Some Forlandon Archers. They're a Forlandon unit, so they're quite lightly armored, but they do have a decent range value, and they're just a little bit more numerous than other such units, so you can use them to sort of pad out your numbers. Some Harlenon infantry here from Al-Hassan. We already know all about them. Got a ballista here as well. They're just a ballista crew. They do what they do. And some Al-Hassan's Harlenon infantry are present there as well. So we can move into Al-Hassan's army. I'm sure there's more from Death Eater that'll be coming up the ramp here, so we'll take a look at them in just a second. But Al-Hassan has some Wardens of Elastirion as well. Harlenon infantry. Mithlon's Sword Masters. Harlenon Guard. Forlindon Marines. Got some Mithlon pikemen, so a step up from the Forlindon pikes. A little bit more heavily armored. The model here is actually done in tandem with Sin of the Dark Cloud and the Cowering Coma. So they both worked on that together. And the result is fantastic. Got some Noldoran Blade Masters here as well. Mithlon Marines, these are one of the missile units for the mid-range missile units, rather, for the Elves of Lindon, which is something that they do very well. Pikes and Peltists really is the name of the game when you are playing as Lindon. They've also got some really good cavalry as well, but we're not going to be seeing too much of that on the field today. Move forward here. Al-Hassan's got some Harlenon Guard, some Noldoran Guard, and some more Noldoran Blade Masters. Does that make 2 Noldoran Blade Masters? Yes, indeed it does. So, quick jaunt here down the ramp. We're going to find some more of Death Eater's army. He's got Mithlon Pikemen. Let's kick things up into full speed here. More Mithlon Pikemen, Harlenon Infantry, and 2 companies of the Mithlon Marines. And it looks like we are going to see some of that fine Mithlon cavalry on the field today. Here we have the Horse Lords of Ulmo. They are a knight unit. They are unshielded, a little bit lighter on their armor value, but nonetheless they are very swift, and they're a knight unit. So they hit hard, they're good in melee, and their melee defense is quite high. 2 units of Forlindon archers here, in addition to another unit of pikemen. So a lot of pikes here, a lot of very narrow areas where those pikes can be used. So if the Elves of Lindon, for example, are going to try and fight a little bit further up here, unless there's some artillery or something that can really get a good angle, it's going to be difficult to lay down any sort of enfilading fire to help out troops as they already push up uphill, which is a disadvantage for them, both in terms of fatigue and I believe also the way that combat rolls are resolved. So that's a pretty big advantage to have there in terms of composition. Death Eater has some Horse Lords of Ulmo here, and they're actually going to be charging down some of the Misty Mountains units. So we'll take a look at the action here, and then we'll slowly go through the compositions and the players in this battle today. A nasty frontal charge here, a little bit of early cav action from Death Eater's Horse Lords of Ulmo, and they just smash their way through about 40 or so of this heavy Goblin infantry. And this Orcs of the Misty Mountain Army is going to be under the command of Blindness. He's got some of the Goblin Heavy Infantry, of course, regular old Goblin Infantry. Got some Cave Trolls here, lumbering around, looking horrible and ugly. Cave Troll Drummer is the product of Crimson Behelid, who is one of the developers for 30H Reforged. Fantastic work here. Some of the best, actually I think it's safe to say that they have the best looking trolls of any mod. Got some heavy gobos here, some more of the infantry, some halberds backing them up. Got a Goblin's King bodyguard in the back. We have some white Uruks, or mounted Uruks, white Uruk Fearmongers, that's right. Mountain Uruk host, which you'll probably notice is the same model that we use for our Ironshod units in Silmarillion Total War. And that is the product of the Cowering Coma's work. Not too sure who made the white Uruk Fearmongers, but they are a very scary halberd unit that also inspire units nearby. And certainly the Orcs of the Misty Mountains need it. A lot of their units are pretty pathetic in terms of their morale. Got some more Mountain Uruk host here. Another company of them. Snaga Skirmishers here, who are being brought in very, very tiny numbers indeed. And I think... yeah, these are more of his units over here. Got some Mountain Orc Berserkers. And some heavy archers, and maybe some more infantry mixed in there as well. Some crossbows. We're also seeing some elements of the Mordor army under Aguilar Goodmoodathon. I know Aguilar pretty well. He's in the Dark Tower clan with myself and others. He's got some Sauron's Will, some Olokai, 2 units of Olokai here. Got some more of his troops down here in the back. Some Uruk captains, Troll drummers, Blackguard of Barad-dûr, some Orc maulers, and the Temple Executioners. Anyone who knows anything about Reforged knows to fear the Temple Executioners. They are very tanky and a very, very deadly 2-handed sword. You got some more non-infantry here from Aguilar, and I think that's it for his army, unless some of them are kind of swarming up here, and indeed they are. So we got some halberds, archers. Got some Temple Guard as well with their armor-piercing arrows. Let's see the other Numenorian model there for the Temple Guard, modeled after Isildur's helmet from the, I think it's the Shadow of War game. Though it could just be part of the series. Halberds moving forward. Mias Morgul chosen with a new model from Karen Koma. Let's get a good look at them. Fantastic work, always. And they're pushing back the Horse Lords of Ulmo. It looks like have been harassing some of these Orc Archers and just trying to get some good value off of them before things are pushed into the city. And there's really not much use for cavalry inside of there. And of course, gives his units here a little bit extra time to make their way up that hill to the top of Weathertop. Over here we have another Goblin army under this guy. He's got some Goblin infantry, Goblin archers, Mountain Uruk archers, White Uruk fearmongers, heavy Goblin infantry, a whole bunch of heavy Gobbos, snow trolls, some archers mixed in there as well. More heavy Goblin infantry, a lot of chaff here to kind of contrast with that very elite nature of the Elves. Got some Mountain Orc Berserkers here, 2 companies of them. And then we're going to come into yet another Goblin army. This one is going to be under the command of Mechthorn. He's got Gobbo Archers, more Gobbo Archers, a whole bunch of crap tier Goblin infantry, more Gobbo Archers, lots of heavy infantry. Let's kick things up here. Black Uruks, more of the work of the Karen Koma right there. Heavy Goblin Halbs, more Halberds, Snaga Skirmishers, his own complement of Mountain Orc Berserkers. Got some Mountain Uruk Archers as well. A lot of chaff. The Mountain Orc Berserkers are at least locked morale, and they have very, very low armor, but they have an extra point of HP, and of course they are armor piercing, so can be useful in the right situations, but of course they have some very pronounced weaknesses, and that's something that the Elves of Lindon are actually quite well positioned to exploit today. They have a good deal of missile units, and a ton of pikes to keep things in place. This is going to be a hell of a fight here, I think, for these players. What do we have over here? What do you know? We got one more army. This is a Gundabad force under the command of Inarius. He's got Witch Realm pikes, a whole crap ton of the Angmar halberds, Orc Fellers, some Scourge Raiders with their armor upgrades. We got the Guardians of Karn Doom as well with their armor upgrades. Gundabad Guard. Some Witch Realm Blackguard mixed in there as well. I think some of these Gundabad Guard have an armor upgrade, so they're using some like pilfered dwarven arms and armor that they would have taken out of Mount Gundabad. Angmar Marauders are here. We got some Blackwatch Legion. Yes, indeed. There's some Hammerers. Witch Realm Hammerers that are mixed in there as well. So this is probably the most quality heavy, I think, of the Orcish armies. Snaga Stalkers, Goblin Band. I think maybe some Snaga Archers in there for good measure. Oh, some Goblin Trackers to kind of fill out the rest of the roster. So Naris has a bit of a trek in order to get all the way around. But he will, I'm sure, join his allies once he is able. I wonder whatever became of those Horse Lords. We got some of Death Eater's troops out here, just forming up a bit of a rear guard. I don't know if he'll keep them there. He may keep them there until he's satisfied that his troops have made it all the way up to this choke point. It's possible that they may try and reinforce that unit of Harlandon Guard. I think that's probably for the best. This is where they're going to have the biggest advantage over the relatively low tier and low quality Orcish armies, making them fight uphill while you're in a good position at the top of a slope. I think that's probably the soundest strategy to have moving forward here. But we're going to go ahead and turn it up just a little bit here. This would be a good opportunity to check the chat. Yes, indeed. So thanks for joining us, Alassane. I already mentioned that Alassane was the creator of the scenario, but a big thank you to him, because without him, we wouldn't have this game today, would we? So thank you so much, Alassane. I'm going to go ahead and turn things up just to about 2 times here as everyone slowly maneuvers their way into position. Long games like this are usually won or lost in terms of positioning and fatigue and managing your resources over time. So there's a lot of maneuvering that is going to go into things. But I don't mind that. It gives me a chance to interact with chat. Just, you know, generally lots of fun. But while we're waiting here, why don't I go ahead and link this in the official Third Age Reforged Discord as well. And hopefully we can pull a few extra people in here. I think that ought to do. And so Chris is going to be the first one to get himself into position, so he's moving forward with a roving band of Snaga skirmishers. And I think Death Eater is going to take this as his cue to retreat up this this streetway here, and they're going to take position in this final choke point, which, honestly, a little bit risky. And they do have some very good positions here, especially for that artillery. What do we got here? Okay, so they've been left on auto fire, but it's just a weird little bug where the elevation makes them think that they have the range to shoot units, but they don't actually have it. So they'll do the animation, but they'll never actually fire. But yeah, as I was saying, a little bit of a risky proposition, I feel, as there's just this one choke point. And once they're through there, they're through there. And I was going to call them Angband. We use a lot of Cowering Coma's models from the Angmar faction. And Angmar is actually pretty good at breaking up lines. And they certainly have their Blackwatch Legion today, so that could be a big problem for the Elves if they don't try to capitalize on the terrain advantage that they have. So we'll see what happens. Go ahead and we'll increase things ever so slightly. And now the goblins of Chris are slowly making their way up the hill, but I guess everyone's going to be exhausted by the time they get up here. So maybe that's the plan, is to exhaust the goblins' morale, but then by the time they get here, it doesn't really matter about the terrain advantage because they're all so tired, and the fatigue bonus, or penalties rather, have racked up to the point where the numbers are almost unimportant. They could throw units at them all day, and their fresh elves will be able to repulse them with relative ease. We'll see. Like I said, long games like this are really all about managing your resources wisely and trying to get effective trades. Especially in terms of, like, eating up ranger ammunition is a huge part about choke point and siege battles like this in Reforged. Rangers are absolute game changers, and you need to be able to put enough pressure on your enemy that they are forced to use that on you to relieve some of that pressure. And you need to have the numbers to be able to sustain that on top of it. So it's an interesting dynamic. Can I download this mod on Mac? I believe actually Oliver Snowy Owl does play Reforged on Mac. So it is certainly possible. My understanding is that Mac can be a little bit buggy and a little bit more unstable. But someone else can probably correct me on that if I'm wrong. And Oliver will certainly have some insights to share with you. So I would certainly ask him. But yeah, it is possible to play. Let's see here. The Snaga skirmishers slowly getting their way into position, but honestly, look at this. Look at this nightmare. This is going to be hell for any goblin army to push through. Honestly, I can't wait. We're going to see, like, troops with, like, kills in the hundreds, like the mid-hundreds. Certainly the Rangers are going to have a field day in this sort of scenario. I would be shocked if some of these Forlorn archers didn't try to shoot down the Snaga from here. They're not super devastating in the numbers that they've been brought in, which is a little bit strange. I think that's probably just a copy of the unit in the EDU that got picked over the intended entry. But they still can be a problem, especially for an Oldoran guard. They can be very effective against them. So why not expend a volley or three and kill these guys? But we'll see, we'll see. Goblin infantry making their way up, a couple of companies of them, and look at this black tide here, washing all the way up to the top of weather of Amon Sul. And now Inarius' army has arrived as well, and you can see Mordor pushing up there, and we've got some serious quality coming in behind Chris's units, and he's got the necessary support here to hold his ground for quite a while. So this is going to kick off very, very soon. Slowly but surely, the goblins are now creeping forward. These Naga skirmishers, I think, are just being kind of sacrificed. Look at this. I like to think the orcs are just like chanting as these guys slowly move forward to the slaughter. Sacrifices for Melkor's greatness. Ooh, yeah, see, just 70 of them. The attrition can be real. Chris may be getting a little bit too brave here. No, they're still relatively shielded because of that hump on the hill. Whereas this is quite suitable for their firing arc. Yeah, taking it on the chin here. Yeah, now that I look at it from the ground, I assume that that's why they're not firing back with some of their archers, is because the hump of this hill here actually prevents them from being able to do so, which is super sneaky. And there goes the arrows. I think they're going to try it anyway. Oh, no. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe the elves had the accuracy to avoid that hump. And the arrow volleys are beginning to pour in. That steel rain claiming the lives of many of these orcs. Look at this. It's just like a queue. It's like a music festival for orcs. Everyone's just relatively patiently waiting their time and kind of waiting their turn in line and just grumbling about it. I love it. It's like Orc Pemberton. Orc fodder have now been brought forward, and we're going to see... This is looking like a fairly standard kind of thing. So you're always going to see defenders with a lot of quality. Generally, they tend to bring more quality because they have the higher budget. But the attackers, obviously, as a result, end up with lower quality units. But you just try and just... It's like the tide, essentially. You attack with your lower quality units and slowly wash away the defending front lines with your low tier units. And then, once everything has been expended, you just go in for the kill. So I think that's what we're going to see here today. Just pretty standard siege tactics. You can kind of see them from here, actually. I mean, basically because there's no, like... I think it's because there's no, like, face on the mesh that is like this here. Like, you can see the brick wall. There's, like, no face that, like, faces outwards. So, there is on this side, but not on this side. Where there's still collision, so they can't, like, see or shoot each other. It's kind of funny. And the orcs doing their best to skirmish, but honestly, most of these orc archers don't have the necessary oomph to get through the shields of Lindon units. At the best, they can try and prey on the pikes and the unshielded troops. But it really only takes a volley or two for the very accurate and very deadly elves to cut through these guys. Not sure who they're going after here. Probably the rangers. That would make the most sense. But actually, I think they're hidden. Yep, they certainly are. So, yep, just trying to whittle down these guys, get what kills they can. Just trying to get lucky, basically. And there's some light damage happening here. Yeah, another one has fallen. We're still very much in the opening stages. Let's take a look at chat here, see how everyone's doing. I like that you're still playing this game. Yeah, you know, I do like Reforged. It's not that I don't like it, but when you, like... I play similarly and more because when you, like, have this project that you're super passionate about and you have a lot of, like, creative control, and there's just so much more stuff that you like can, I guess, do like on a personal level than like I am still working on some stuff for the Reforged team, but I'm way more involved in Silmarillion. So like when I have that opportunity to just like be a really really active participant and to like have the ability to be like really really creative instead of doing like work for somebody, you're doing work for you basically, and it's way more compelling to me. But there's nothing wrong with Reforged. I mean, I have criticisms of the mod, but I'm sure people have criticisms of Silmarillion. Nothing is perfect, but that doesn't mean that I don't enjoy playing it. I just don't do it as much for the stated reasons, basically. That and my time being fairly limited. Some skirmishers here from Thick Dick have been brought forward. A whole bunch of Orc Archers mixed in with them as well. And it's just pew pew central. This is probably, like, if you're in this and you're participating, this is probably the worst thing. Is just sitting there, being helpless and like taking that fire. So it takes a lot of discipline for these Elven soldiers to be able to stand up to that without breaking or without, you know, being impetuous and charging into a hopelessly dire situation. Let's see what we're doing in terms of percentages here. Pretty even, 3 to 5. Although the enemies are far more numerous, so there's a lot of dead orcs here, like probably to the tune of a couple hundred maybe. But what I really want is that infantry grind. I know that that's what we're all here for, so hopefully that kicks off soon. And it looks like Chris is going to get the party started with some goblin infantry sacrifices moving forward here into the teeth of this basically just like a pair of jaws here if you look at it. This pit of like teeth and steel. That's going to swallow up these goblins in a matter of moments. Hello there, Saif. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Welcome to the stream. I don't think I've seen you before, so if this is your first time coming to the channel, welcome. Hope you enjoy your stay. Oh, they're just kind of chilling. This is not the sort of discipline you would expect from goblins, is it? Being able to just stand this close to their hated enemy and not, you know, immediately charge or immediately flee. Oh, here we go. Oh, the first one to go down here. First blood for this Elven infantry formation. Cutting down one of those gobos. These gobos don't like it. I think we could see them start to flee, but that's to be expected. They're reduced by a little bit, about half, maybe a little over half, but they're also exhausted. And those fatigue penalties are fairly significant, especially for low-tier units like this. There we go, general charge. I'm going to charge right onto those pikes, and many of those goblins are going to be instantly skewered. Those Harlanden warriors deftly moving forward, maneuvering between the pikes, and finding their mark in goblin flesh. Some more Snaga skirmishers here. I know now out of ammunition being brought forward, and it's just just behind them is a carpet of dead orcish bodies as they attempt to waste some of that precious ammunition from the elves. And really, that's going to be where this battle is won or lost, I feel. The infantry is here to make room for the elven skirmishers to do their job. There's far too many orcs and goblins on the field today for the infantry to grind down on their own. So this is really going to come down to, I think, how well the defenders can manage, in particular, well, obviously their resources, but in particular, their skirmish resources. Oh, look at that. That's beautiful. It's one thing that you just can't beat with Medieval 2 is the scale. And the sort of weightiness of the combat. It's just so good. Let's sit there for just a few moments while I take a look at the stream. And how do you guys feel about the quality so far? One of the big draws for rendering things is that you can do things, you can make content in much higher quality. But if the quality so far has been acceptable and you guys can kind of see what's going on and what I'm describing, then you know I'm pretty happy with that. But yeah, please do let me know. I encourage you to do so. The goblins have like truly flooded into this courtyard. Let's see if we have any reinforcements coming up here. Oh my god, apparently they can just shoot through here? No. Oh. That's just evil. Look at this. It's like a really aggressive wall just like spitting all over this orcish formation. Oh, even the shadow bows are in here. So we have some evil rangers on the field today. The temple executioners are probably being targeted. That would be a good thing to go after. It's actually going to force a lot of these guys back down the hill. God, it's like a football riot. Like, people trying to push through this crowd. Like, this would be a disaster if everyone just piled in like this. Oh, my goodness. All they'd have to do is, like, collapse a section of wall here and put the entire army to rout. But, like, trying to flee back down here, bowling everyone over, things getting trampled to death. Maybe that'd be a little bit too unforgiving in team battles. But damn if that wouldn't be a cool mechanic to have in a game. Certainly be a new level of concerns to bear in mind. But the Gabos are going to be able to muscle their way through the press. And they're going to continue to try and penetrate this wall of pikes. But there's some quality here. There's actually a double line of pikes. Mythlond and Forlindon pikemen, along with the Harlandon infantry, they've moved forward and begun to engage, still supported by the pikemen and their high range. But the Harlandon infantry has so far kind of taken the brunt of this. And that does pose a potential concern for the Elven units. Because the Harlandon infantry were here largely to block missiles. That's why you mix shielded units with your pikes. But if they're gone, there's no more protection for them. So some of the Goblin missiles could be extra useful. But Alasan is already coming in with another unit of Harlandon infantry, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. Not right now, anyway. Look at this. The Elves are still in very good health. That's just... yeah, there's some very scary units in there that I can't wait to see these guys carve their way through. Ooh, another line here from Alasan. A double line of Harlandon infantry. They are determined to hold this choke point at all costs. You can hardly blame them. Just better hope that there's no Witchers on the field. It's actually really funny to watch Witchers in sieges, because the second a unit like that pops up, it's like whack-a-mole from both sides, with the Witchers trying to maneuver away from missiles, and the defenders throwing everything that they have at them to try and make sure that they don't blow massive... irreplaceable holes in their defenses. Look at this. There's just tens of thousands of troops on the field today, and I just love it. I love the scale. It's a little bit laggy, but that's okay. Some Marauders have moved in. Some mid-tier units from Angmar. Now some fire arrows are actually pouring into here as well. So these exhausted Orcish troops, the more and more of them, they get fricasseed by those fire arrows. They are going to literally and figuratively feel the burn and be very likely to flee. We're probably going to see several mass routes before this affair is done. These Harlandon infantry faring very well with the support of those pikemen. Whenever they get driven back, their retreat is covered by those pikes. It's just such an effective way to play in multiplayer, which is why everyone does it. More arrow fire pouring in. The black tide here lapping at the borders of this elven formation. Got some more Harlandon infantry pushing forward, driving the orcs back from the pike line. Perhaps pushing it a little bit too far, getting away from their support units, and this poor guy right here is going to find himself very isolated indeed. Ooh, there's actually some good to bad guard in there. I think that might be an officer. Teeing off against one of these Harlandon infantry. Let's see who wins. Knocked him over. A hail of fire arrows raining down into the Orcish position. A little bit of friendly fire, though. You can see a few of the elves in the back being fried by their own by their own archers. A little bit of movement in the back here. As the Harlandon Guard maneuver themselves up onto this hill. They are extremely tanky from range at the very least. So they're going to have a great time up here. I think we've got Death Eater and Alisan having the same good idea at the same time. And kind of preventing each other from doing what they need to do. Yeah, see, so one of them is going to pull out. I think it's probably going to be Death Eater. Ballista from Alisan is up here as well. I'm going to fire down into this formation. And exact a terrible and bloody toll for the Orcs' audacity in coming to this Elven-held stronghold. I'll let that sit for just a moment here. The unit that I fear most is the Blackwatch Legion because of their armor. They can be very, very potent. And in this particular kind of scenario, like where it's just one big line fight and they're trying to hold one choke point, a couple of units of Blackwatch Legion can be the difference between victory and defeat. Like they can punch holes in these formations and they're just so hard to stop. And if you are in a position to follow that up, yeah, that can be game swinging right there. I dreamed about being a Gondorian infantry defending Minas Tirith, and when the Gated Fallen Trolls came in, I wake up. That would be awesome, but I woke up at the wrong time. I don't know. I think you woke up at the best time, because we've all seen the movies, and we know how that goes for the poor Gondorians. Is there a Mangonel in Theory's Reforged? Yes, they do have a Mangonel. I think their Mangonel doesn't work... I mean, it works the same way with the projectile, but I've spent a lot of time tweaking the projectile and like its firing arc and stuff in Silmarillion, and I don't think that they have those changes. So it does have its own quirks and oddities, but yes, it is present. Alsan says, I hope you're ready for another scenario coming these days. It's probably going to be one of the most chaotic scenarios I have ever seen. A D-Day reenaction. I'm really excited for that, actually. That would be amazing. Yeah, I hope you send that my way, because honestly, I think that'd be a great thing for the channel, and I think people would really like to see that. So yeah, thank you, Alsan. Ooh, man. That's a frame drop right there, but that's to be expected. Look at those fire arrows. Got some goblins routing. More of them pushing forward. Just a friend of mine there from Arizona having fun. Ooh, lots and lots of dead orcs. I can see some javelin volleys here coming in. Oops. Oh, I didn't mean to tab out there. But more of these orc archers, feeling the sting from those fire arrows. Looks like we finally have a little bit of quality moving forward here. I can see some snow trolls. Don't want to get too close because I don't want it to crash on us. As we're a good way through. So we're just going to sort of observe from on high for now. Ooh, wow. I thought that would just bring us a little bit farther forward, but apparently not. But look at this. This is apocalyptic carnage here. As those orcs continue to try and push forward through that pike wall, but the pikes are just keeping them at a deadly distance and exacting vengeful tolls from these orcs as they try to move forward. Look at that, for every elven body on the ground, there's like 30 orcs in exchange. This is a rough situation. In come the Blackwatch Legion. We were just talking about these guys and how much of a problem they can pose for thick, blocky formations like this. Let's zoom out a little bit and we can view that from the top. And the Blackwatch are just slamming into the front of that pike formation. And look at that. They've already made it through to the other side. And that concentration of force is just so strong against the elves. They've spearheaded that assault, and now there's just so many more reinforcements that are pushing in all at the same time. Now there is the possibility with those fire arrows and with all the routing units that this could end very badly for the orcs, but let's try and get a little bit closer down there. Look at that. It's a total slideshow with so many troops forcing their way in to one area. But on the upside, oh man, that poor elven pikeman getting tossed into the air and trampled to death. But on the upside, The more of them die off, the more our frame rate will return to normal. Javelins and everything pouring in here. Again, you're seeing that like whack-a-mole effect, where the second one of these big threats rears its ugly head, then the defenders are kind of panicky and like throwing everything they've got at them. So the Blackwatch Legion here, probably going to lose out, but look at the hole that they've punched in that line. And it really is... I have heard plenty of criticism about units like this, and I personally don't have them in Silver Early and Total War, because I have other things that kind of work in a similar way. But these are necessary for fights like this, where you have an entrenched enemy who you'll never get through otherwise, without that little extra, like, oomph. So yeah, Blackwatch Legion like this, they're very useful, not only for pushing through these kinds of situations, but for maintaining the flow of gameplay, so it's not just an endless grind and nothing happens. Very, very good use of them in this situation as well. There's lots of scary units here to try and plug that hole. The Good and the Bad Guard have tried to follow that up as well. I think there's some Blackwatch over here. No, it's actually just the Mountain Orc Berserkers. Norris' Blackwatch down to 38. They might try to push through the rear of the Elven formation here, try and widen that hole as the Orcs continue to flood in, and the Elves are desperately trying to staunch the bleeding. Damn, what a game. Olokai pushing in, along with some of the Angmarim Pikes, trying to make sure that the Orcs keep their hard-fought foothold. Let's take a look at our percentages here. 30% to 50%, so half of the Orcs have already died in this choke point. And hence the desperation as they just muscle their way in here, trying to do it from both ends, if possible. But so far the Elves of Lindon have managed to stabilize the situation. Let's view it from on high there. You can sort of watch the natural ebb and flow of this battle. Cave Trolls have been brought forward. Looks like there's some Adunayim Shadow Bows down there as well. Ooh, which means that our frame rate is really going to drop. I want to like zoom in, but with all these units plus the Rangers, I think it might be a little bit too much, and we could be facing a crash. So we'll just have to watch the natural kind of progression here as the lines buckle and are reinforced and then buckle anew. Orcs desperately muscling their way in there. Vicious and fierce in their desperation. Wanting to sink their teeth into some sweet, sweet elf flesh. The Elves, of course, aren't going to go down without a fight. So fire arrows being poured into this blob by, I believe, the Harlandon Guard. Yes, indeed. As the Elves try to use the low morale and the fatigue state of the Orcs to turn this around, because that exchange was not favorable for the Elves at all. And if we take a look at the percentages here, I'm willing to bet that they've, yes indeed, they have come together much, much more. So we've got maybe a 12% difference here as opposed to the 20 that we had previously. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the effect of the Blackwatch Legion. Things are starting to thin out a little bit over here. For the Elves, they brought in the Noldoran Guard, their crisis troops. We've got the Rangers, the Wardens of Elos Tyrion up there as well, coming under some fairly heavy fire, I believe, from some of the lower tier Goblin Archers. They are quite vulnerable to that with their low missile defense. And I want to get in there and see what the Rangers are shooting at, but again, a blob fight like this, you are flirting with crashes when you do that. But let's try. Epic struggle here between both sides as the Elves try to regain control of the situation. I think we can see some of that Ranger fire here, shredding through the halberds. Yeah, and they're certainly feeling the burn.
Only half our force remains.
Mordor archers being thrown in, probably as a matter of desperation. I think that Mordor and Chris's Goblin army were among the first to get into the fray, which means that they're probably destroyed at this point. Or very, very badly mauled and kind of on their last legs.
Our men have slain the enemy general. Without him, his troops will lose their will to fight.
There goes one of the Orc generals. Depending on whose it was, that could be a very big problem. The Elves are doubling up. They have managed to regain control in a few areas of this line fight, but there are some places where they are extremely thin on the ground that could be exploited by some of the more high mass units that still remain for the other side. And so, while we're talking about it, oh man, look at it down here. Just a slaughterhouse down here as well as the Elves pour ranged fire into the reinforcements, thinning them out before they ever get to the front line. But if we look at some of the remaining units here, got some Orc Berserkers, Black Uruks, Uruk Captains. I thought they had some Trolls and some other pushing units still remaining, but apparently they do not. They're looking very, very worse for wear here. That Elven defense so far has just been ferocious, but it's starting to turn around, 58 to 61. We had a 20% difference earlier, and now it's just a matter of 3 percentage points. And maybe this is where the defenders begin to run out of steam. More and more routing here as the goblins attack, break, reform, and then attack again.
Our men have slain the enemy general.
Another one of the Orcs generals has now fallen. Let's see if the Elves manage to pull this off. It's looking alright for them so far. But again, they are very, very thin on the ground here. Most of their reserves have been committed. There's still some Noldoran Blade Masters from Death Eater in reserve. The Rangers have been cut down to the point where they're at about 30% strength. In the center, the Elves are still very, very, very strong. And over here, they're still very good as well. But this is where I would not be surprised if the attackers concentrated a lot of their efforts, trying to break through here and then roll up the line if they're able to. Oof. Mount Nura Coast here, colliding with what remains of this unit of Harlandon infantry down to about 25. But a fifth of their strength still remaining. This has been a very bloody and desperate struggle for both sides. Let's take a look at that. Let's keep a close eye on their percentage points here. It's very, very close. 1% difference now. The Orcs, through sheer weight of numbers, are starting to pull it back. Missiles somehow at this late point in the battle, we're almost at the halfway mark, missiles still flying through the air. This is just utter chaos. I use the expression a lot, but it is Battle of the Bastards-esque carnage. So many dead on both sides that you just don't even know who's who anymore. Noldoran Guard, however, you can always pick them out on the battlefield, proudly charging into the fray, smashing a unit of Goblin Infantry, and running up against the fallen men of Angmar as the Adunayim Shadowbows backed up by, I believe, some of the Temple Guard. Yes, indeed. They're going to push forward and roll over these Numenorians. These are the Noldor who have fought through the ages against the darkness. And they are showing that bitter ferocity here on the battlefield today. More Javies coming in, scything through the heavily armored, not Noldor, but Mordor elites. There's almost no semblance of a battle line anymore. It's just a big brawl. Looks like some of the Rangers, actually, the Wardens of Elostirian, pushing in. Javelin volley coming down. Routing some more of the Goblin Infantry as more come out of nowhere. The seemingly endless numbers of the Goblins on display here today. Some of them die and then 10 more move in to take their place. And they still have the numbers too, don't they? There's a lot of archers here as well. That's a potential issue for the lightly armored elves of Lindon. And some of these units will rout and reform, and then there's some quote-unquote fresh, by which I mean not battle-tested reinforcements making their way up the hill now. Temple Guard have lost about a third of their strength, a little bit over. And Noldoran Guard down to 9 from the large numbers we had earlier. The Temple Guard proving to be too much for these ancient warriors. More of these elves pushing forward. The Blade Master's in here, coming under heavy missile fire. But the elves have managed to reclaim positions that they haven't had since the start of this fight. And they are now pushing them back into this very narrow area, farther and farther down the hill. But do they have the numbers? They've got pretty sufficient numbers so far, but they've actually fallen behind the orcs for the first time this game.
Good tidings. The enemy general.
And there goes another one of the evil side generals. Are we looking at a mass rout here? I think we could be. Swordmasters fearlessly charging into a herd of Snaga. Mindless beasts that they are. Kicking down some of them, but being driven back in turn. That poor Swordmaster feeling the sting of one of those axes while the rest of his unit retreats to safety. And now the elves have been forced back once again. And things have kind of not moved too much from this one choke point. I don't often do games like this, but damn is it fun to do once in a while. Just to watch a big old monster mash. Blobs from both sides just wearing each other down. And the elves have now reformed, trying to bring some semblance of order back to their lines. Noldor and Blade Masters have taken up position on the wings, where their brethren have fallen in an attempt to stabilize the situation. Mithlond Marines, fresh from Death Eater, now out of ammunition, being brought to bear against the orcs. And we haven't even hit the halfway mark yet. What else could go on in this battle? More and more fire arrows pouring into this blob here as the elves try to thin out the missile units for the orcs. So we have some more reinforcements making their way up the hill here. Goblins, halberds.
Without that general, they may lose heart and flee.
Some heavy infantry as well. One of the elven commanding officers has now fallen. And the elves have pretty good discipline, so it's unlikely that they'll flee just because of that. But they could prove to be decisive later in the battle once we're down to the final few pockets of men. For both sides. Look at this. What a mess. I hate to be the guy that cleans up after Third Age battles. That would be a horrible, thankless job. Nice dead orcs? Yes, indeed. It's a beautiful sight. Also, hi, Umed. Thanks for joining me, man. So Thorn has brought forward some of his heavy goblins who have not really been tested in battle so far. We've got some Black Uruks, a very large contingent of angry Black Uruks bringing up the rear. We've got some leftovers from the Goblin Infantry, some Troll Drummers, and of course there's this pile of Orc Skirmishers here, raining a seemingly endless hail of steel rain onto the beleaguered Elven defenders. And now the attackers are back in force. Just in time.
Pray something changes in the course.
Ooh, nice shots there from the ballista. That might be enough to send some of these goblins into a panic, even with the presence of their bodyguard. Goblins are quite cowardly, and indeed we are going to see some breaking there. Oof, brutal. What do we have here? 77 to 72. The elves are actually losing out in terms of numbers. This is a lot for two players to handle, and they've done spectacularly so far. Hopefully, oh yeah, we're going to see some routing there for sure. Hopefully that ballista is going to be enough to see the elves through to the end of this, but it's not a sure thing, not yet. Shots from the ballista inducing panic in the lower tier goblins. The Black Uruks, however, are made of sterner stuff, and they're not going to run at the drop of a hat. Black Uruk's feeling the wrath of that ballista. It's fired a few times throughout this game, so I don't know how much ammunition it has left, but really this is, like I said earlier, this is going to come down to the ammunition reserves of the Elves here. I don't think that they have... Well, maybe with all these Nordoran Blade Masters, they could just win in a straight-up melee slog. But it's hard to say, especially with all these missiles continuing to deal attrition to the Elves. A lot of these reserve units are kind of thinning out here. And the Elves are basically all in at this point. Yeah, I don't know if they have the numbers to just hack their way through everything that still remains. These Mountain Uruk archers are about to flee. Some of Thorn's heavy goblins have been shown the door. Oh no. Still so many. Well, one of the players has admitted defeat. It's probably one of the... Probably Chris's army or potentially Aguilar's Mordor armies. I don't think that they have too much left to offer at this point in the game. Well, the Elves standing strong, though, in the face of these overwhelming odds. How many pikes do they have left? I think they're almost completely out of pikemen. They were some of the first to go. They do have some strong infantry. They've got some Noldoran Guard, a lot of Blade Masters. I think all 3 Blade Master units are still in the field. But I don't think they have any pikemen left to directly counter those halberds. Rangers of Elastirion moving forward. I wouldn't be surprised if they were able to rout off these Mount Uruk archers relatively quickly. We got more numbers coming up here as now the out-of-ammunition goblin skirmishers are being thrown into the fray. Look at these tiny little units of rangers. They're an easy thing to miss, and they can have a surprisingly large impact on how battles turn out. Even the Black Uruks have been forced back down the hill. That's not good for the red team. Never a sight you want to see is your elite units like that, like the Black Uruks, fleeing when your other units will also not stand and fight. What hope is there? Oh, one of the trolls just got shot to death. Another mass rout taking place as those goblins are forced back down the hill. But there's no rest for the weary here, as the next wave of red team reinforcements has begun to push down. It seems like the Elves now are feeling a little bit braver, more willing to commit to a straight fight here. And looks like they might try to deal with this big blob of skirmishers and also cut off the reinforcements, but it leaves them incredibly exposed. They're all just sitting out here like ducks, waiting to be shot by those goblin archers. And of course, there's still the matter of the small unit of rangers. And there goes the second Elven general, cut down by the Uruk captains. Desperation here, perhaps, being shown by the Elves as they try to push back against the evil forces instead of letting them dictate the terms and the pace of this fight. We'll see what happens. Crash, crash. You know you want to take a screenshot. We don't say that word on stream. No way. Oh, some fresh Mythlon Marines being brought forth. And it seems like, through sheer determination and skill at arms, the Elves are managing to overrun this goblin position and get very, very dangerously close to these skirmishers. But these skirmishers are able to just fire point blank into them. The Mythlon Marines from Death Eater being brought in to make sure that they have some staying power here, but they're just being smoked by this huge pit of goblin archers. And there goes another one of the Orc generals. I don't know how much more of this either side can take. I think everyone's lost their general at this point. There's the possibility of a mass rout here. If the Elves start to regain the upper hand, there's still some pikemen in there. It's nice. Not enough of them, I don't think. Oh, these Mythlon Marines are taking casualties at an alarming rate. It looks like finally these guys are starting to run out of ammunition. Ooh, but crossbows are here. I don't think the Elves have anything left to offer in terms of the skirmish fight. Nope, this is everything that they have left. It's been brutal so far. Oh, the attackers are now 10% ahead. Things are looking grim for our elven protagonists. Well, we'll see what's to be done. Maybe they still have a hand to play. I'm starting to see some retreating here. Not outright routing. But all it's going to take is like one good charge down here. It might be enough to rout this whole blob and send them into a panic. Looks like all these skirmishers finally out of ammunition. These goblin crossbows have now whipped out their... No, actually, they have ammunition still remaining.
The enemy general lies dead.
There we go. I think now everyone has officially lost their general. Goblin crossbows firing probably into the Noldoran Guard and the Noldoran Blade Masters. That is going to hurt. Those are the units that are going to see them through to the end here. I don't know. I don't know if they have it in them. Look at this. These poor Mythlon Marines now down to just 18. They were full strength earlier. This is a gamble, and I don't think it's one that the Elves are going to win. They're now 12% behind. Well, we have some routing, though. But I think it comes far too late. These heavy goblin crossbows have taken their toll. I'm going to turn it up here just a little bit so those Noldoran Guard are going to manage to make it all the way to the goblin lines. And now I think these gobos are going to be in trouble. They're going to get off one final volley there, as Noldoran Guard desperately try to cleave their way through these guys and stop them from bringing down any more of their brethren. Every elven life matters in a game like this. Oh, are they going to shoot? Yep, another point-blank volley. Here we go. They've now managed to overrun this position. The Noldoran Blade Masters are now being supported by some Harlandon Guard. And they're going to smash these goblins with a terrible and furious vengeance. See if we can't get a little bit closer. There we go. Frames are kind of back to normal, so I'm a little bit more confident in zooming in. And there go those goblin crossbows. They're going to route right through the Elves. Now the Elves are going to pursue these guys downhill, and look at this. Look at this mass rout. It's going to continue to massacre their way down this hill, throwing everything that they have at these goblins. More routing. Nothing really seems to be able to stand against them. Look at this massive rout. Maybe some of these units will reform, but there's a huge number of troops left. But most of them are fleeing for their lives in the face of these victorious and quite justifiably pissed off elven defenders, as they push downhill, massacring every orc they can sink their spear, pike, or sword into. Well, I think Chris actually admitted defeat here. Oh, wow. These guys are walking away and just still drumming like nothing's happening. Well, there is some resistance being put up here by a ragtag band of goblins. Let's see if we can get close in. And the Elves continue to push their way down. This might give the troops down here the opportunity they need to reform, and I think we are seeing some reforming. Oh, the Elves were so close to victory here, but their momentum has been stopped, and I don't know if there's enough to carve their way through here, so this isn't nearly over. We still got another 23,000 frames left, so let's see what happens. Hello, Radu. Thank you for joining us. I don't think I've seen you before, so welcome to the channel. Ooh, this is a tense one. 6%. This small force here accounts for 6% of the two mighty elven armies who were defending the top of this hill. And they had so much momentum. This whole blob here was on the run, but a small band of goblins managed to hold them up and stop them from consolidating their victory. And now it looks like the elves are once again facing defeat. That being said, there's a lot of chaff here, and there's a lot of quality still left on the elven side. A lot of Noldoran Blade Masters I'm seeing in there. A few units of scattered survivors from the pike regiments. A few Harlandon Guard. I don't know. Can they do this? Some of these goblins are looking pretty stable. The elves aren't quite at the end of their fatigue, but they're very, very close. We have some routing here, some heavy goblin halberds routing off. That might spook some of these guys. That could percolate down the line and cause a massive rout. We'll see. Still pretty even. Ooh, there's still some archers left too. Oh, I don't know. Let's get right down and dirty in there. Being butchered en masse, but there just seems to be no end to the numbers from Mordor, the Misty Mountains, and the Far Kingdom in the north of Angmar. Those arrows are the big threat here too. They can fell these lightly armored elven warriors who would normally take 4 to 5 of the orcs with them. They can just kill them from range like it's nothing. Another one of the Harlandon infantry falling just before our eyes there. The bodyguards doing their best to pick up the slack. But if you look at their percentages, another percent has fallen of the elves, and they need every single man. Yeah, this is a close one. Let's take a look at the morale here. Oh, the orcs are kind of starting to flag a little bit. And with all of these lower tier units completely exhausted, all it's going to take is 1 or 2 units being routed to cause mass panic. Similar to what we saw earlier. Let's go ahead here. Kick it up to about 2 times speed. As the press continues, more and more of those orcs just feeding themselves feet first into the wood chipper. So we have some halberds here. They routed off earlier. They've now reformed and come back. That could be decisive. The halberds have a range difference on these regular elven troops still remaining. There's a few pikemen in there who can contest in that regard, but for the most part, the halberds have a distinct advantage in that they can attack and not be attacked in return as easily. Now the elves are being pushed back. Oh, this is just so close. So close. And bear in mind, this is 2 elven armies in a strong entrenched position against 5 orcish armies. Well, we could see these Misty Mountain forces begin to rout, and if they rout, then the other goblin halberds down here will panic. We could be looking at a mass rout. I kind of want to see that again. I've never seen a mass rout of that magnitude in the many years now that I've spent playing Third Age and Third Age Reforged in particular. That was crazy cool. Well, things are stabilizing a little bit.
Only half the enemy force remains.
Oh, half, you say? Who's still remaining? I think most of this is Thorn's stuff. Yeah, I think Thorn is really the only remaining player here. Well, there's some elements of one of the other Misty Mountains armies, for sure. But nothing really significant. Most of this is Thorn. Oh, the Snaga Skirmisher is still in the fight. 176 of them. Oh no, that's disastrous.
Defeat seems almost certain.
I don't know how they're going to do this. They are slowly bringing it back. But it's still even. Just through like the sheer quality of the Elven forces relative to what the Orcs still have remaining to them. These Blade Masters here pushing hard against these Orcish units. We've still got a lot of time remaining in this battle. We're a little bit over 2/3 of the way through, so we are nowhere near done. This is crazy. This is one of the like really crazy scenarios that can really only be done on Medieval 2. Just right down to the end here. Let's try and speed it up just a little bit, just to get through the slog a little bit more efficiently. God, there's just so many of them left. And like, look at the massacre that took place up here. And there's still that many of these goblins left. It's just a crazy numbers differential between both sides. Yeah, the halberds are doing well. If only there was just something, some fear, some way of getting behind the goblins. All it would take was one good rear charge to send this entire blob panicking and fleeing for the hills. But the elves, they just don't have it. I wonder what happened to the Horse Lords of Ulmo. It'd be nice to see them at this point, but unfortunately I lost track of them. We had to admit defeat there, probably from the small forces remaining from one of the other Misty Mountains armies. Thorn is still in the game. Yeah, I'm going to try and speed it up just a little bit. We'll go up to about 2.5, maybe a little bit over times speed here. It's just a slow burn here for these Elven forces. It's a lot of Snaga Skirmishers. Damn, there's just so many of them still remaining. But they don't have a good firing solution, so it's like both sides are kind of locked in combat here until someone breaks. If I was a betting man, I would bet that it's the goblins who will break first.
Something changes in the course of battle.
I'm gonna slow down just a little bit. If we like crank up the speed, but it's like super choppy like that, it actually doesn't go any faster. I'll find something with a good medium here. There we go. We'll just let that play out for a little bit and I can go and take a look at chat. 2020 gonna be wild. Thanks a lot. Don't miss the end. It was great to watch. Yeah, I can't wait to see the end. I've had it described to me a little bit, but yeah, it's I've been told it's pretty fantastic, and it is very, very close, as you can see. Fun for the defenders, not that fun for the attackers. I mean, it's kind of it would be kind of fun to play this as an attacking army. I don't mind feeding myself into the wood chipper. Especially when it makes for something as cinematic as this. And of course, Noldorin Blade Masters here. There's like a bunch of like samurai essentially. They're the last ones standing against these hordes of goblin peasants. 94 to 99. These Blade Masters might just have what it takes, but we're going to have a mass push here from the Orcish players as they try to exploit the very thin line, the thin bronze line here that separates the Orcs from total victory.
Defeat seems almost certain.
Yeah, now the Blade Masters are starting to lose out. Let's see what happens here. Might see some routing. I think the Blade Masters are locked and they'll fight for pretty well ever. At least until they're slain, but the other Elven units, that's definitely not the case for. 99 to 94. It's damn close. This Goblin Blob is still very much reduced by such a small crew of elves. There goes the Mythlon Marines from Death Eater, no longer able to fight, having fought to basically the last elf. Now the Nodoran Blade Masters are all but defeated. Their victory here snatched from their grasp by a last-minute mass push by the Goblins, using the only advantage really left to them, that being their numbers. What do we have left here? Less than I think maybe 24 elves still remaining. Small pockets of resistance being slowly beaten down. We can go ahead. 6 might be a little bit too high, but let's go up to about 3.5.
Defeat seems almost certain.
Where do we have another 10,000 frames from, I wonder? Is there like a hidden unit of like rangers or something up here? Interesting. Well, we'll see what happens. Maybe there's like the Olmo Horse Lords or something will come back and save the day, like at the end of like an American like Western movie. Look at this tiny little pocket here. Instead of being pushed off the hill, the Orcs are forced to just extract them from here with great loss. %100 to 95. Very close. And I think a lot of this really did come down to how aggressive the elves were at the end there. They pushed down to try and silence that blob and to like get some momentum and maybe get a mass rout going. I can see the logic behind it, but they exposed themselves hugely to an entrenched, essentially, pit of missile units. And for the Elves of Lindon, that can be decisive. And today I think that it was. I think that's probably the biggest thing that contributes to this Elven defeat. A valiant defeat, but a defeat nonetheless. If it was Imladris or something, they might have just shrugged off that missile fire, except for the crossbows. The crossbows would have been a problem. But for the Elves of Lindon and the Mythlon Marines and the other units that they had, that was always going to be a gamble, and it's one that unfortunately they lost. Oop, sorry about that. Yeah, I was really rooting for them in this one. Down to our last 7,000 frames here. Woof! Like running a marathon doing nearly a 61,000 frame game like this. Good evening, Calvin. Thanks for joining us. There's a few streams today that you'll be able to catch up on. I'm doing a lot of streaming in preparation for my birthday, which is actually tomorrow. I'll be turning 31. I know I'm old, right? So I figured I'd do a lot of streaming today since I won't have any time to do it tomorrow. And it's been a while. So, yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this so far. Just a few of them. Look at this. They just refuse to die. These little bronze warriors. They're like cockroaches, really. Oh, we got some routing here. Or the possibility for some routing here. I will be shocked if these 6 guys manage to carry this fight. Maybe they can do it. If they could just get a few more kills, like, rapidly, just enough to, like, cause a shock. See, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Maybe they could cause that rout. There's, like, a few elves left that could, like, attack these guys from the rear or something. That would be enough. This is crazy. Is that routing that we're seeing here? No? I'm trying to pull things out a little bit. I think there is some routing there. Snuggle Skirmishers may be trying to disengage so they can just pelt them to death, since this is going so poorly for these goblins. Oh, imagine being Thorn and being like, yes, I got this. And then 6 Noldor and Blade Masters give you this much trouble. I can only imagine the frustration on his end. Oh, one of them has fallen. As the farther out they push, the more likely they are to get clipped by those goblin halberds. And I saw another one of them ended up going down as well. It's just a few. Is that routing? Oh my goodness, can they capitalize on this? Can they follow through and make the rest of these guys run? I honestly hope so. That would be an upset that I don't think I've ever seen before.
The defeat seems almost certain.
Well, they are being driven back now. There's only 3. Nope, there's 4 of them left. So they lost, I think, 3 or so of the Sword Masters in that sally, and they might just lose another one here. No, they're not coming back for sure. The Snaga have now moved forward, supplementing the numbers of the heavy goblin infantry, and this could be it. This could be the end of this fight here. Yeah, we're coming down to the last 1,000 or so frames. Let's go up to 4.5 times. You know, Calvin, that's the impression that I've gotten as well. I've done way more interesting stuff in my 30s than I have in like most of my 20s. So yeah, I feel good about it. Oh no. Did they end up? Oh, we had an admit defeat. Oh, I remember now. I think out of respect for the elves and the insane amount of killing power that they've displayed here, they agreed rather to allow the elves to retreat. So, kind of a gentleman's agreement there. Nobody really wins this battle, let's be honest. The orcs were butchered in incredible numbers, and the elves lost some very irreplaceable warriors as well, so nobody wins. Kind of a surprise at the end there. Let's take a look. 4,750 kills on one ranger unit. See, I was excited to see those kinds of numbers. Crazy ridiculous, but like, god damn. I think they outkilled the rest of the army on their own. That's just madness to me. Death Eater's Rangers, I don't think did quite... I think that Captain Irion is Death Eater. Yeah, because he has the Horse Lords, so yeah, that makes sense. Did he have... I'm pretty sure he had Wardens of Elastirion. Oh, they only got 963, but 4,750. That's about as high as I think I've ever seen it in a game. So that was super exciting. Thank you very much to Alisan. Games like this, I probably won't show them very often because I find games in open fields to be a little bit more tactically interesting, but every once in a while, it's fun to have this kind of spectacle. So I will do this kind of thing occasionally. But yeah, most of my battles will still be like field battles and things like that. Things with a lot of movement and a lot of choices, but this was just dumb fun, and I absolutely loved it. So thank you so much, Alisan, for sending this in to me. Apparently he has another scenario in the works, that being a D-Day-esque scenario. And if he wants, I have some map editor resources that would be extremely useful in that regard, at least in like setting up kind of the ambiance. So if he wants those, I will happily send them in to him. But yeah, I hope that he sends that my way, and then I can show it off to you guys on stream. But while you're still here, if you guys enjoy this kind of format, because normally I upload things to the channel, you know, the sort of standard YouTuber bit. But I do have school coming back. Again, I'll be doing a second degree. And I have a whole bunch of things that just going on in my life generally that eat up my time. Developing Silmarillion is a big part of that. training for marathons and things like that. So, I have a fairly busy real life. So if you guys like this format and you're okay with sort of the slight drop down in visual fidelity, then please let me know, because I am very interested in moving forward with this, because it does allow me to kind of streamline my content creation process. I don't have to spend 6 to 8 hours on a video between like uploading it and rendering it and doing the little bit of editing that's needed, that kind of thing. I can just cut out the middleman, go straight to YouTube, and go straight to you guys, and then I get to chat with you a little bit as well. So yeah, let me know how that works for you as a format, and if that's something that it seems like there's sort of a majority of support for, then I'll continue to do that moving forward. But in any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster,